How y'all doing? It's Judge Lynn coming to you. Hey, hey, and Decker. Decker wants to be seen. Okay, Decker. There he is. There you go. You cool? Zora, do you want to get in on it or what? Zora? Now, y'all say I favor Decker. I don't. Decker's just pushy, you know? Look at that. Now he's going to sit his butt on the chair. At least try. Do you want to? Go over there with your sister. Anyway, y'all see my shiner? Look at that. I told you yesterday when I was the flies whop into a door, and look at that. All red and shiny. I feel like I used to feel when I was a little girl. Uh, First of all, I look like a 12-year-old boy, and I'm gonna put some makeup on it because I think it is very distracting. But I wanted you to see it. I used to love having shiners. I don't know why, and I had a lot of them. Let's see if this covers it up. I don't even know. I'm doing this on the TV thing. Well, it covers up most of it, doesn't it? A little bit more on there right there. Ooh. Well, now it just looks like a white spot. But anyway, uh, so yes. So, but when I was a little girl, I always had a black eye because I was a tree climber, roof scaler. I taught my parents. I can't remember, believe my parents used to let me do this stuff. I would get a sleeping bag and sleep on the roof of the house. I usually come down in the middle of the night. I think they probably knew that, so that's why they would let me do it. But I would just climb up, get off the terrace, on the thing, onto the roof of the house. And if I used to come to school with so many black eyes. Once the school called my mother in to discuss them because they thought she was kicking my behind at home. And this is in the 60s when, didn't nobody have helmets. There was no 696 kids. It was just, it was rough and ready. Your parents could spank you. Your friends' parents could spank you. The school could spank you. Uh, and they just like weren't really concerned about it. But I came with so many black eyes, they thought, oh, what's wrong with this child? What's going on at her house? But the thing is, I was running and gunning and falling and all that kind of stuff. So there you go. But I covered the black eye. But anyway, uh, I have a housekeeping, and then I have some questions to answer. Now, I tried the questions on an email, given an email, but what happened was, first of all, it was a stupid email address, judgelynnpodcast@gmail. And then what happened was, and I don't know why this happens, I start getting emails that aren't cool, and then one or two people will decide to email me 20 times a day. So I can't, you know what I mean? It just becomes unwieldy. So here's what I think I'm going to do. Uh, no, here's what I am going to do. I'm going to Judge Lynn I on Instagram. If you follow me on there, Judge Lynn I on Instagram, isn't that the worst handle? I have to take up the worst handles, just terrible. Uh, you know, but and then you can DM me, and that way I could have moderation control without having a third party with all that kind of stuff, which makes it complicated and difficult. So that's what we're going to try. If you have a question for me, that's what we're going to try. Uh, Now, Elena asked me a question, which was, do you regret growing on TV? And the answer is a resounding no. Uh, Now, my mother didn't want me to do it at all. She thought it was tacky and lowbrow, and she wanted me to have uh, she wanted me to be Sotomayor or something. You know what I mean? The Supreme Court, and she was all that tacky show. But anyway, and I know it was kind of voyeuristic, but I always tried to have what I used to call a dignity parachute at the end, where I give some advice that's meaningful and it's meaningful to the couple involved, and that's going to lead me to one of the fellas questions on the on here too, but I talk to the people who are involved, and, and I enjoy that. Uh, and so it was a, and I try to give advice not only that is helpful to them, but helpful to people beyond them. That was my dignity parachute that I used to call. Now, as a practical matter, I worked 16 days a year and made way more money on the than I would have on the bench. So for as a practical matter, I was a stay-at-home mom for all of my youngest son's life and most of my other ones. So with a great income, and I used to we used to have so much fun when we was in LA, and we had the regular crew and everybody knew what they were doing. We had it down like a science, and we would have more fun than a barrel of monkeys. But you know, so but no, I don't regret it at all. It's given me a nice, economic cushion. It led me to marriage boot camp, which led me to Dr. Ish, which led me to meet some people I never would have met before that are interesting and funny, and uh you know and then I did my own um uh, Judge Me Not, which was a show that I wrote on all black, all 8 episodes for a season. Wrote a second season too. It got picked up, but then things happened. But anyway, so no, I mean, it gave me an opportunity to do a whole lot of wonderful things. It gave me an opportunity to write a couple of more books that I already had. It gave me an opportunity to do, and just have fun and have a good time. I got to meet Cat Williams. Got to meet a lot of interesting people. Who have I met? I met Cat Williams. I've met Denzel. I've met Two Chains. I didn't know who he was. Mama, she Two Chains. Like, yeah, two. I've met a few people, just interesting. Monique. I mean, just Queen Latifah. All these just things I never would have done before. You know me. I'd be in a room full of people, famous people. Like, "Ooh, what am I doing here?" And it's funny. Uh, I met Samuel L. Jackson, and he said to me, he didn't say hi or nothing. He said, I don't like your new set. I don't like your new bailiff, but I still like you. And I was so excited that Samuel L. Jackson knew who I was. And how could he know? But you know what it is actors spend a lot of downtime in their trailers. And if you're flipping channels and you've been on TV for 13 years like I have, eventually you're gonna like, well, crap, I haven't seen anything else. Let me see this. I've seen everything else. Let me see this. And so that's how people like that find me. So there you go. So somebody asked me a question. I taped, I think I'm gonna try to attach it to the end of this thing. I'm really trying to learn how to work this thing. But I did a tape, a short about a couple where she was just uber emotional and it upset him and he got angry. And I was telling him, when you're dealing with an uber emotional chick, you have to be more uh, buttoned up because you have the capacity to do so. And this person said, and I understand their reasoning. So he has to control herself and she doesn't. That's not what I was saying at all. If you see the whole episode, he has he's he's closer to being able to control himself than she is. And I told her what the things she needed to do to get greater control of herself. But in the meantime, in between time, somebody had to step up and step forward and lead that thing. And fellas are always saying, I want to lead. I said, lead in that. I didn't say lead in that, but that's what I was telling him to do. I said, you got an extra, you don't respond to emotion with more emotion, but and he had the ability. And I've done that other times with men and women, the other way around. Like, Mrs. Smith, you're the more rational one. You're going to have to lead this thing as far as wrangling your emotions because you are more on top of yours. All my advice is meant for the people right there and beyond. But sometimes one person in a relationship has to carry 90% for a little while. Or 20% or 50%. It's not all fair and even lockstep. There were times where, Mumford just, Big E just carried me because I couldn't do it myself. There were times I just carried him. So yeah, he was in a better state than she was. And I wasn't saying, man, oh, it wasn't a universal or statement. It was just that. Now, let's talk about universal. Another good segue. Um, so, uh, in response to my solitude post about where I found my tribe, Kathy, someone said, "Have you ever heard no man is an island?" And absolutely, and I'm so glad she said that because that is from one of my favorite pieces of all time, Meditation 17 by John Donne. It was so good. It's where uh, what is it? Ernest Hemingway got the phrase. For whom the bell tolls. And what happens is back in the day when John Donne was out there, when somebody was dying, the church bell would toll, you know, and then people would send little Johnny out and say, "For whom does the bell toll?" And his response was about the universality of humankind. And he said, "Perchance he for whom the bell tolls may be so ill he knows not that it tolls for him. Perchance I might think myself so much better than I am. Those that are about me and see my state have caused the bell to toll for me, and I know not that." And then it goes into no man is an island. Can't remember what's next. Everyone is a piece of the continent and a part of the main. If a clod, like a cloud of dirt, be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less. As if a promontory were, like a promontory, things that juts out, or um, a manner of thine friends or thine own were. Every man's death diminishes me because I am a part of mankind. So do not ask for whom the bell toll. Do not send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Like every we are like that. And there is a longitudinal study. The longest longitudinal study on happiness started in 1938. It's still going on today. And in its inception, it's meant to confirm statistically racial differences in terms of capacity and ability. And what they fooled around and found out that success and health and happiness were uh, uh, more closely associated with the number and strength of your positive relationships than anything else. I mean, race, anything, all of it was just, and it was a surprising result. And that's a good study. When you study on one thing and you think it's over here and you find yourself over there and you accept that because they weren't looking for that answer. That answer just smacked them in the face and they did and it's well done and it was well controlled and all that kind of stuff. So there is value in that. There is value in human contact and all of that stuff. And we should and we should enjoy it. But it's not a duality, it's not solitude or no man is an island. It's solitude. And typically dudes who write like Hemingway and all those people are solitary, you know. Uh, but there's no, this is right and this is wrong. You know who you are and what makes you happy, and then you take that, and you take the information about what things can make you happier, and you make those little bitty incremental changes. Not saying that solitude is bad, just saying you have to see the whole picture. You know what I mean? And it's not, you know, everybody's right, wrong, judgy. Don't be so judgy, says the judge. But anyway, and it's interesting, and The last time I rememorized that was when I was homeschooling my little one. How you doing there, Dak? And school was not for him, the traditional school. So I took him out and I just schooled him myself. And we would have for English poetry slams. I start out with Langston Hughes. He'd do some rapper. I'd come back with T.S. Eliot. I love Hollow Men. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. And then he brought out some rapper and he said, the plague in the form of Reagan was one of the lines. I said, do you know what that means? And he said, no. And so I said, well, let's look it up because I knew what it meant. The disparity, crack, and cocaine, and Len Bias, and all that. And I was around during when all that was going on. So we went back and we looked through it. Started with Tip O'Neill, and he just, you know, but it led him to learn in an interesting way, and it allowed me to learn a lot about what he was listening to. Some of which was wild, but then again, he thought my stuff was crazy too. So, but anyway, but it was just a way to make him make him learn. That's all we were doing. It was a way to make him learn, and one size don't fit all. Some people just have to do things their own way, you know. But anyway, this is my hat. I think it's probably on backwards, the words, but feelings are fleeting, felonies are forever. So that's if I'm gonna go out in public. I try to be as nice as I can, but if there is a conflict, maybe it'll give me a couple of seconds to run. I'd be that. Well, maybe I don't want to go to jail, so let's not hit her. Just being silly. All right, y'all have a great day. And yes, I butchered Meditation 17. I butchered it, but it was the best I could do in the time because I read it again this morning, and I butchered it, I know, but I wanted to see how well I could do. So there you go.